So when it comes to education or even just Singapore society as a whole, I think now any young person, even like for us, we are millennials, and like when we look at news every day, there's so many things, so many challenges that our country is facing. But on one hand, I also hear from people abroad, there's no country that's perfect, right? So from all your work, is there anything that you see that is uniquely Singaporean for better or worse compared to other countries, or there are challenges that are consistent amongst younger folk all around the world?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I've actually said to my PAP friends that if you want to get somebody to actually appreciate you, just make sure they travel more abroad. When we live in Singapore, we criticize the PAP because everything they do is wrong, blah, blah, and much of what they do is wrong. The minute you go outside, you just travel within ASEAN. You go to Thailand, you see how incredibly screwed up their politics are. You look at every ASEAN country, you look at, in fact, most of the developed world countries, then you're actually grateful for the PAP. And I say that unapologetically because even though there are many things that they do that is wrong, you look at it fundamentally. We say that our leadership is boring, they're technocrats. But yeah, better to have a boring technocrat run your country than to have a bunch of absolute idiots. And you look at the two countries, which are the two Anglo-Saxon countries, which we follow the most because of our colonial heritage. You look at the UK and the US. Can anybody reasonably say today that their system is better than what we have? Now, I don't think our system is perfect, and that's why I really resent it when people in the UK or the US actually dare to preach to us about what we should be doing. And I say, look back and I say, damn right that LKY basically threw things back at them. And those were the days when, in fact, they were already more functional than today, but their politics is so totally dysfunctional today. And I'm hardly a pro-Trump, pro-right-wing guy, but I think the political systems are so screwed up, the liberal elite has essentially lost the plot. And why the liberal elites are now losing way completely to the far right is because they got it all wrong. And even now, when they're all ridiculing Donald Trump and ridiculing the far right, I think they have no understanding that the situation today is a lot of their own doing. So I guess back to your point about Singapore, I would say I think it's useful to look at what we are doing right. It's also quite useful to see what I think we're not doing right. And I have long argued that because we are relatively harmonious, we're relatively egalitarian, and we're relatively, in many ways, better as a harmonious society, our type of governance is better, and so on, it also tends to make Singaporeans very smug, with a lot of hubris, and quite arrogant. So, and I've long cautioned that you can be proud of what you have, as I am proud of what I've done in my company, but the minute I say that I think we've arrived, the minute I say that I'm better than so-and-so, is the beginning of the downfall. And I think young Singaporeans, on one hand, are critical of their government, and when they go overseas, they criticize other people rather than just quietly learn from it, and you get the picture of the ugly Singaporean who thinks that every other society is screwed up. No, not with the West. They are still young Singaporeans. Many of them still have what I would call a quasi-colonial mentality, which I really tried to work against in SMU, so that we tried to get our overseas exchange students to go to ASEAN countries. And there's another thing, a lot of stuff about what I've tried to use SMU to do, like I've tried to get Banyan Tree to do, which reflects my view of what Singaporeans would be like. And I'm very proud that SMU students are quite different than before, because NUS and NTU have caught up. But I think we definitely produced a whole succeeding generations of students whom I would be very proud of as a Singaporean. And that was one of my major motivations when taking on the challenge of helming SMU for 25 years, was to create a generation of young Singaporeans I could be proud of, when the typical foreign stereotype of young Singaporeans were very insulting.